good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you are. That's the most appropriate greeting. My name is Valerie Hope, and I am your host for Time to Come Alive. As you know, every week we get together and have wonderful conversations that help us become more conscious. Because we're more conscious, we're better able to connect with others and ultimately create something of value in our lives and in the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, if you're on watching this recording or if you're watching this live, please share this information, share this link to your social media pages, share that with your friends. It might give you some really great conversation over lunch or over dinner or coffee or tea this afternoon or tomorrow. We just want to make sure that we continue to have this conversation beyond the time that we're here together. I'm really grateful to have you here. Now, as you know, we always begin our conversation by spending some time in mindfulness. Because we have such an esteemed guest, she's actually going to be the one doing the mindfulness exercise. But before that, I just want to introduce you briefly to Dominique Rentsch. Dominique and I have had it's a blessing actually that we've met one another because we are both involved in a program, in a nutrition program. And it so happened that when we had to choose accountability partners, that however the universe lined us up to be together and be accountability partners, it happened. And since then, we've had some phenomenal conversations well beyond the scope of the program that we've been registered in. We're really talking about life. We talk about everything. And one of the things I appreciate about you most, Dominique, is how flexible you are. Well, you're a yoga instructor, so I'm sure that comes with the territory. But how flexible you are about life, about living. We've had a lot of conversations about work. We've had conversations about our personal lives, about family, about our bodies, about everything, and how fluid you are in talking about everything. Not just because you're knowledgeable, but because you are not attached to how things should be. So I thought this would be a really fantastic way for us to share our special friendship and also your expertise in an area of interest with the world. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we'll start with the mindfulness piece because I think this is going to be really interesting and unique, and then we'll start our conversation. How's that?
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
So more than mindfulness, it was really a quick exercise that is based on energy, just to make sure that you have the energy moving, because often we don't pay attention to things around us, and just because our energy is drained. So I thought I would just show you something that is quick. So we're going to work on the meridians. We're going to take our 2 or 3 fingers, and then the breathing is going to be inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. So rather easy. So you can start on the cheekbones, that's stomach meridian. And that would help you to ground. So just deep inhale and exhale. And then we can quickly move to the collarbone. And again, that's K27, so kidney. And we're gonna inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. And that will help you if you are tired. Then to boost the immune system, and that's the great season to do so as we are transitioning, you can go on the thymus, so on the sternum, and you can just again inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And then to finish off, we'll go, maybe I'll just come a bit up on the brow line on the side. You do it like this with your fingers. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Inhale nose, exhale mouth. And then you can just close your eyes. Stay quiet for a little while and just observe how you feel. You might not feel anything, but your body is working transforming its energy, and you might even feel it if you're sensitive. So that's a quick thing you can do every morning or anytime during the day. If you need like a little pick up, you can do that.
Wow, I liked it. Thank you. And for the gentlemen out there, the bra line may not apply. So you might just fit right in the middle of your rib cage.
They probably have already seen a lady and they can.
Oh no, we're talking about your bra line, not theirs. Oh, thank you so much. No, this was fantastic. And I think the points that seemed to be most sensitive, if you will, was when we did the thymus right here at the sternum. And then now I noticed here the bra line like we talked about. So those are really interesting.
So if it's the thymus, you can do it several times during the day, because often when we get sensitive there, it's when we are about to get sick or if there is a contraction, and it's good. And you can even, instead of tapping, you can also just massage just a bit. Yeah. And you can go counterclockwise and you can just massage a bit. Yeah.
Why counterclockwise?
I don't know. I've been told like that, and I didn't question it from a healer. Okay. So told me that.
I question everything. Thank you so much. I think it's a great way to wake us up, right? It's time to come alive physically. Good. Well, I'm sure that people who have been listening thus far would probably want to know a little bit more about you. So can you tell us first of all, where are you connecting from? And then tell us a little bit about who you are and what is it about this energy medicine that has got you so captivated?
Okay, so I'm based in Switzerland. I'm half Swiss, half Swedish. I've lived most of my life in Switzerland, but I love traveling and I love meeting new people from different cultures. That's why I studied languages, so to be able to connect with different people from different cultures. I've basically worked as an interpreter, so helping people understand each other when they speak different languages. And then I've worked for a long time in communications, so still this passion for communicating and making sure that people can understand each other, share. And then I've actually transitioned, and now I'm really interested in yoga. So I'm teaching yoga. I've been teaching for 2 years, but I've been practicing for many more. And the kind of yoga I chose is actually based on energy. It's a Kundalini yoga. And that's when I discovered a bit the entire field of the invisible, but really something that you can experience. And what I discovered is that most of us, we live below our true potential. We have our own limits. Often we have limiting beliefs, or we think this is a limit, but actually there is so much more to it. So then I studied a bit like quantum physics, just following some people, doing workshops. And then I discovered at the same time pretty much energy medicine. And we call it energy medicine, but it's really a lot of prevention work, taking care of ourselves. And with just a few small techniques that are easily, you can apply easily at home and just to feel better, because sometimes we do feel good, but we can feel so much better. And that's what or sometimes we don't feel so good. And if you change your energy, it can totally switch. So that's what I liked, and that's what I decided to a bit discover more.
Well, you've gone through quite a bit of transition just recently, right? But I want to hear a little bit more about what was it about this idea of energy medicine, right? You chose to study yoga, and specifically Kundalini yoga, that was also based on energy. Quantum physics also based on energy. At what point in time did you decide or uncover that was something that was so important to you?
I think it's interesting because I've always been somebody very much in the mind, but this time I didn't decide anything. It just came to me. So I think it's just like that sometimes brings you experiences and it comes on your path, and either it speaks to you or it doesn't. And for me, it was small pieces that at first I didn't see the big picture. So I didn't even see there was necessarily a connection, but I'm always curious about discovering new things. So I'm, always doing workshops, trying new things, classes, podcasts, everything. And I tried a few things, and then, for instance, the Kundalini yoga, it was just, I had done already more than 10 years yoga. not involving the energy so much. And then I discovered one class where I felt so much from within, much more. And that was Kundalini yoga. And then I explored. And then for energy medicine, I don't even remember how I bumped into that lady. I think it's my former neighbor. She's American. So she knew already about other people who study quantum physics, and she knew about Donna Eden. So I think she was the one to, at some point, mention her, and I stumbled upon her. Yeah.
I think it's interesting you talk about how, sometimes things just come up in your path. You don't always see the big picture, but it's almost, I imagine for you, because I think I do the same thing, it's almost like this burst of energy, like a little spark of interest. Like, even when we say the word spark of interest, it's conveying some sort of energy, something that just makes us go, what's this? I want to find out more. And that continues to develop, and you get more and more information. What was the first part? Can you remember that moment where you're like, you said you experienced something. Can you tell us what that was like?
For the energy?
Yeah.
For the energy, I think it was, because first I was exposed to it. Actually, my former yoga teacher, she transitioned from classic Hatha yoga, and she tried to introduce Kundalini yoga, but it was many years ago, before anyone here in Geneva knew about it. And a lot of people, I think, were a bit puzzled, because it was, the movements are very different, the philosophy is different. Many things are different from other types of yoga. But I trusted her, so I decided to come a few times, and really quickly, I can't really remember when, but I just remember that the energy was circulating along my arms, like from within. We do an exercise and we sort of shake the energy, and then we always have a moment of stillness where we don't move, to let the energy settle in and the body reorganize the energy where it's needed. And I could really feel like as if I was bursting with energy from within. And normally in Hatha yoga, I had practiced for many years, and I love it because you stretch, you breathe, you hold the poses, but I never felt that, never. So I think after one or two classes, or maybe even the first, I don't remember, but I just remember it was really an experience that it's not through the mind, it's really an immediate experience through the body.
And I know for me, when I've learned the meditation that I've learned, Vipassana meditation, focuses a lot on body sensations. And I didn't realize until I actually went through the training how little I was aware of my body sensations. I mean, when you're practicing for a 10-day period, like 7-8 hours a day, that you finally get it, right? Or start to get it. What did it take for you to be that mindful about the sensation so that you could notice that was something that was significant?
Actually, it's not an amount of time, because I had been practicing for more than 10 years Hatha yoga. It's just the technique is different, so it's immediate. I can have in my classes people who are beginners who've never done yoga at all. They come to a Kundalini class and they can experience it the first day. It's really just, so it depends how you are, how sensitive you are, but it's really quite immediate,
So for those that are maybe not that sensitive, because for me it was a matter of time. I do like you. I think I spent a lot more time in my head, right? Thinking, rationalizing, analyzing, figuring things out, and really taking time to feel, my feet feel like this, my knees like this, my side. That took a lot of focus. Eventually, now it becomes a little bit more simpler, but what do you recommend for those that may not be that in touch with their body sensations? How do you start?
To connect with the breath, first of all. I think any tradition you will, follow. I think you were talking, meditation takes more time to like penetrate, because again, you try to drop the mind, and the mind is the last thing that's going to want to drop. I mean, we have our attachment to ego, to our perceived identity, and if we try to shake that, they're going to be resistance. So of course, for me as well, in the meditation part, it took much more time. But I think if you want to have this connection, well, you have several things, but the breath would be a help. And I think to connect, I think we also feel we are totally living disconnected to nature's rhythm. So spending time in nature helps as well. To again, to be tuned in and to not be so much attracted by what is around us and the stimuli we get, but really to like slow down. First of all, slow down, breathe, and if you can be in nature, you have already like great elements to allow you to connect. So it can be, you know, swimming in a lake, you have the physical sensation. Being in the sunshine, you have the physical sensation. You have many small things that already help you to connect with yourself.
Got it. And so part of it is really just the breath by far is one of the most, I mean, we can count on our breath for the most part. It'll be there. It'll be there. It's always going to do its thing. It doesn't require our manipulation, although we can manage and control it. There's something that's easy to pay attention to. And that this idea of being in nature, I think it's interesting. Now, granted, I've seen some of the scenery around where you live, so not all of us have the we're not blessed to live a few steps from Lake Geneva. But I'm curious, when you say be in nature, what type of nature would be the most conducive to really helping someone get that grounded?
I think we're all different. So some people are more drawn by the water element or the earth element. So you have to respect that and see what's available as well, not make it too complicated. But I think, for instance, the forest is great because the forest, you really have a special energy again, more than a park. A park is already nice, and that's what I have easily available here. But I can feel the difference. If I go to the forest, it's like another dimension. It's like, I don't know, the energy is bigger, and you really are surrounded by nature. You feel that. Yeah.
What happens though when we're not in nature? You know, perhaps there's more of a city life that's surrounding, or we spend a lot of time in our offices. I mean, you worked in a corporate setting for many years. So what was that like for you? What was the energy for you there?
I think we feel much more drained because we don't renew the energy. To keep energized, we have to keep being active. So we often like we're running in a wheel like a guinea pig in a way, and we just don't realize that. So I think again, the breath is gonna always be able to help you. So you were saying, the breath is an automatic function. So it's true, we don't have to think about it. But if we don't think about it and we totally stress out, the way we breathe is not going to help us very much. So there are a few, breathing techniques, super simple to already replenish the body. So that's something that can help. And then for nature, you go to the nature that you have. If you have a park, go to the park. If you just have just like a few flowers you can look at, do that. If you can just look at the sunrise or the sunset, it's available or the moon. This you can always look up and you might see something if you're not in the middle of a big city. And that's already a connection with, with your surrounding. Or look at the birds or, anything that is available that is connecting you to something bigger, not just your little life and the stressful questions you have to handle. So I think this, yeah.
I get that. You said meditation, it's harder for the mind to drop, right? It takes a little bit more work and more discipline. But it's very easy to lose our mind. It may not drop to ground, but it definitely can get lost. And so can you talk a little bit more about like your affinity for nature, your affinity for this kind of life? Because it's not everyone. I mean, how did you grow up and what influence did that have on who you are today?
So maybe that comes because I grew up in the countryside. So it was a tiny village, less than 500 inhabitants. Like my house was next to the fields. I could see the cows, just, nature. So like the sunset, sunset every night, see it directly from my home. So that's always been part of me in a way. I grew up with it. Then I think when you are a teenager, you'll be looking for excitement. So that's when I wanted to travel more, going, meeting new people, new cultures. And then as a young adult, I started traveling, moved to the city, so in Geneva, and also to other places in between, some different countries. And I had this excitement, and that's also, the culture, meeting new people, new way of life, that's also very nourishing in a way. But although I live in the city, I think by American standards, it's really a town. It's really not that big. And I could never live I think maybe for a year. If I know it's for a year, it's okay. But I could never live like in New York City or somewhere where you have like long distances with just concrete and no nature, and too much noise and too much, you know, density and all this. But so that's probably part of who I am, and we're all different. But I also see that people who sometimes are not attracted by nature, they might, like, again, their mind is not attracted by it, but maybe they actually need it in a way to, again, find a balance and replenish. Because otherwise we really live in this artificial life. Like human life is quite artificial, like the schedules we have to be artificial, what we do and everything. And it's not always, it can be, but I think often we push too much and it's not necessarily like good for us in the longer run. Yeah. So that's my view.
That. You know, my family, we always grew up in more of a suburban type environment. You know, there's always homes or, you know, neighborhoods around us. There was very few opportunities in my life, I think, to live surrounded by nature. But when I was in high school, my dad was in the military, so we moved around quite a bit, and all military bases look pretty much the same. You know, the homes are right next to each other. They're kind of cookie cutter. There are some nice parks sometimes within the bases. So that was probably the easy access to nature. But I do remember in high school, we moved off base, and my mom has the house still, and it's in Alabama. And I don't know how much land around it, but there was a lot of land for our standards, for sure, in the backyard. And I remember feeling really isolated for a while when I lived there, because I'm like, you know, the houses were not as close together. And although there were some houses around, it just felt like there was a lot of space, which made me a little uncomfortable in the beginning. And now in my life, I live in an apartment building, but I always find myself trying to find the apartment that has no building or anything right in front of it. Like I don't mind if I'm next to somebody, but I want to be able to look out a window and not see, oh, there's another window. So now I feel like that's my connection to nature is not as strong as yours, but I can see how having some space, like nature provides some space, some breathing room. And that's interesting. Not to have, like you said, that artificial surrounding.
Yeah.
What is it? What's your family like? Are they also as keen on nature as you are?
Yeah, actually, so my mom is Swedish. She came from Stockholm when she was around 20. She's really like, she's a gardener. She made like an amazing garden from pretty much from scratch. My parents bought a plot of land and there was a few trees, but that's it, and just some grass. And now more than 40 years later, it's really like a beautiful garden that everyone admires. And she has always probably dirty hand, I mean, full of dirt, you know, she's always going, and she has the vegetable patch as well. So we always, when we grew up, we always had like really great vegetables, beautiful garden with roses, even with a little pond that my brother actually dug when he was a teenager. So we have 2 ponds with some fish.
Brother dug a pond?
Yeah, and my parents, I think now since then, every year they love it, but every year there is like a hole in the like plastic, you know, holding the water. So every year they have to like empty the pond, try to find the hole, and so it's so much hassle, and that's so many years ago. But yeah, it was my brother at the time. And my father, he grew up in the city, so in Geneva, where now I live, actually, by pretty much coincidence. And but he loves nature, so I think he's happy. They have a house. They love being outdoors. They're very like simple people, but they enjoy like simple life, but also being in the countryside.
In nature.
Yeah.
I know you and I've talked a lot about your love for animals and how that played a part in your upbringing and also your life now. Can you share a little bit about that with everyone that's listening?
With the animal, well, as I love nature, I love animals, of course. But I grew up with like many families, I think, you know, a cat and a dog. So that was nice. We were surrounded also by because I lived in a village, so there were a lot of farmers. So surrounded also by cows and also by horses, by, you know, hens and chickens and everything. So the impact it has had, maybe it's that's probably what you're subtly referring to, is the fact that I could really see from early on that these creatures were not so different from what we were. So, you know, you see an animal suffering. You can see that if you have a dog. If your dog looks like to have pain or is ill or something, you feel the suffering. Or if it's super happy to see you again because you were away for the day, like they can really feel joy. So anyway, this connection that I had from early on with all these animals, that are not only the pets, but also the other like animals coming from a farm, made me in conflict with eating meat when I was already a child. But, you know, my mom was cooking and I was just eating what was served and I was not a rebel when I was young, not in that sense at least. And so I didn't question it too much, but I was already a member of the wildlife fund, you know, when I was probably like, I don't know, 8 or 10, and tried to fight for the animals' rights. And then when I finally started cooking myself, I decided to become vegetarian, just to be aligned with not harming the creatures that I like so much.
You mentioned that there's something that happened. I don't know if there's a moment or something that you witnessed that made you make that decision, right? So you weren't a rebel, you didn't turn down your mom's food, but something happened. Can you share that story?
Actually, you referred to a later event. So becoming vegetarian was really like, it's because I lived abroad and I was living in a family, so that was vegetarian. So I mean, I was already feeling vegetarian in my, you know, inside, and then I was living for a year in the US and I lived with a vegetarian family. But I think the episode you referred to is when I turned from vegetarian to vegan, which is like an extra step. Mm-hmm. And that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So before that, I was just feeling being vegetarian. I felt totally aligned. And for me, vegans were just extremists, and I would never be a vegan. So never say never. And but like, why go so far? You know, like eggs, you know, no suffering for eggs, no suffering for milk. Like the cows look happy in the fields. So really. And then actually, that's when I started to be on Facebook. So I started to see some like documentaries that showed the different realities. So it was really questioning already a bit. And I was, but maybe in certain part of the world it's like this, but not everywhere. And then, but anyway, I think I was starting to envision maybe that I would come closer to being vegan. And that's actually then on my birthday. I was at my parents' place, so back where I grew up since I was 5 years old. And we were sitting having dinner. And during the dinner, it overlooks the field, and we saw the cows that I always saw. But actually, there were many cows around one cow, and she gave birth to a little calf during my birthday dinner. So we actually witnessed the calf coming out of the cow with the placenta, with the blood, with all the cows around, like very, I don't know, protective and all this. So that was very touching. And just a few minutes after, so the calf, the little calf was already standing. Like for me, it's so amazing because when we think babies need like a year, and we're like shaky, but they're standing. And the farmer came and he took the calf away and he left all the cows, including the mom, there. So I was a bit surprised, like, what is he doing? Why is he taking the calf? And then the next day, because I was staying over at my parents' place, I talked to a friend of my mom and I said, I explained the episode, and she said, but of course, don't you know that the calves and cows are always separated because we want to drink the milk and it's not the calf that is drinking all the milk. So it's a common practice that they get separated. And that's when I decided to dig more into how you get milk and how it's done. And then incidentally, because I never saw the birth of a calf before in my life, but during the vegan months, like awareness months, so my birthday is in July and this awareness month, it was in November. I went with some friends in the countryside. We saw a cow. She gave birth in front of my eye to a cow. And again, the farmer came and this, I was like, okay, 2 signs on my birthday during vegan awareness month. Now I can't pretend that I don't know. So I just kept informing myself, reading books, watching documentaries. And then I was, okay, now I know how it really works and I can't be part of it. So, yeah.
what I think is really fascinating about what you share is that there's obviously a stimulus, right? There's something that you saw outside of yourself, an experience that you witnessed, and that experience said something to you, right? It somehow impacted you, whether that was, you said it was very touching to see the birth of a calf, but then the confusion that set in when you saw them separated. But even then, you didn't necessarily decide, oh, I can't have any more milk, right? You started to study it. You got really curious about it, figuring out what was happening. And then paid attention when the second occurrence happened, is when you then started to see that, okay, this is something that I can't live with. And I think that's really true about life in general, right? It doesn't always come with this, oh, it's revelation. Not for everybody. Maybe there's some people that do, but it's this, it sounds like there's just this, you're conscious of something that you weren't conscious of before, right? You become aware of something that you weren't aware of before. And then you figure out, well, what is it that I now know? And where, what does it mean? And that process, I think, is all because of, the energy that we feel around that particular subject. That's what it sounds like to me. Is that how you would explain it?
I think it's also a question, because actually when this happened on my birthday, I started to be vegan as much as possible. But what happens when you have something not easy, and maybe you can relate to that at the moment, like, making choices and conscious choices. Being conscious, it requires more, sometimes strength or organization, or, saying no to certain things. I mean, it's just more complex. And so I started doing it, and that's why I went to actually, I didn't say that, but when I witnessed the second time the birth of a calf, and it was Vegan Awareness Month, this Vegan Awareness Month, actually, I went to all conferences, all events they organized pretty much that I could attend. I did attend, because I had this episode in July for my birthday, and of course, it clicked something in me. And I started to try to implement as much as I could, but then I also went to more nutrition conferences to make sure that going from vegetarian to vegan, I would not be having any deficiency and that kind of things. But so my decision or my action started right after the first episode. But it's true, then when you have a second episode, it's like a confirmation or like a wink from the universe saying you're on the right track. Or, for me, that's how it felt. I was like, okay, it's just like a confirmation.
You said something a little earlier too about, being more conscious requires some organization. It requires discipline, right? There's a commitment that goes along with it. What made you decide to take that on as a discipline? Because it is, when you talked about this artificial world that we all live in that is created, there's a conscious choice to no longer live with or use the products that are they're easy to find, right? They're commonly used by everyone else. So what did it take for you to do that?
It's hard to explain, because once you have the consciousness, it doesn't even look like an effort, but it depends, how is your character. For me, it was important to be aligned. So of course, if you look from outside, it sometimes implies more organization or more complexity. But if you don't want to be in conflict with your values, if you want to be in harmony from within, that's what's most important. And anything else is just like small details. So this can be handled for me. This can be handled. So yeah, I don't know how to
about that.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain more. It's just, how can I explain? I don't know. Actually, yeah, for me, it seems so obvious that I don't know. It's just, I think being able to live your values is something that accompanies you your entire life. And then, you have many things you don't have control over. And And this changes all the time anyway. And even your values can change, it's for sure. But I mean, not having an internal conflict is very important for me. And I think for most people, sometimes we might have an internal conflict, but we're not aware of it. Because for instance, you know, I could have eaten, for instance, when I was vegetarian at the beginning, I actually wore leather, and I never made the connection that actually it was probably the same animals. But I remember when I was younger, as a kid, my mom once had said, I don't remember how, but somehow she said it was not the same animals that were killed for meat or for leather. But it was when I still ate meat. So it was like, although she said the contrary, like, oh, anyway, they're going to be killed for this. So, you know, you can just as well do that. I mean, you know. And I never went back to that story that she told me when I was probably 12 or something. I don't remember. So I was not aware. So it's not, you don't have an internal conflict. But once you become aware of something, having an inner conflict is terrible in life. I mean, you get, for me, you get sick, or you get, you know, at some point you develop a problem because, yeah, even energetically, it just doesn't work.
How does it feel energetically when you have an inner conflict versus being aligned?
Energetically, but already physically, you probably can feel, you know, your body will express the like discomfort or discontent. I mean, you will feel something either in your belly, or you will have contraction, in your chest, or you will have headache. I mean, people develop different signs, but the body, if you repress something and you don't, but you have this conflict, the body is going to express it. So it might not come necessarily through the mind directly, but you will have signs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I can absolutely see that. But, you know, when we were talking about noticing body sensations, because there's so many people surrounded by artificial things that draw our attention, and our focus is not necessarily on what's happening internally regularly. Like, not everybody, right? But there's I think some challenges in just being able to focus internally, unless we have a practice like meditation or yoga or some other mindful practice. We're not always that engaged. I think it might be helpful to think about what it is what we sense. Like, for example, for me now, and, you know, going through this program that we're doing, this nutrition program, I've noticed some things as we've looked at food and how our body responds to the food. So when I feel bloated, when I notice that there's some swelling, some like, or there's joint pain, like those things I pay attention to very quickly. But those are so acute usually. They're very visible. But I'm curious about when something, like you mentioned, maybe you feel it in your chest, like maybe the contraction, or there's some tightness or headache, things that seem a little bit more benign that we don't necessarily tie back to, I must not be living my values, I have a headache. That's not likely what people think. So how do you, or what have you learned that helps people see, or at least follow, whether or not there's something in their body that's informing them about some experience or some choice that they've made?
I think it's just as you express yourself. It's if you don't have stillness, and if you're just occupied or busy being stimulated by what's happening outside of you, so it could be other people, it could be just having music all the time, having, artificial lights, many things just to keep you alive, you will not notice anything. Or your body will start to express a few signs of discomfort, but as you said, most people are used to having some sign of discomfort in their life, so they won't pay attention, and just the sign, if you don't pay attention to it, would be just stronger and stronger until it's super strong, and you probably develop a disease. It could be a benign or like a more serious disease. But if you get the practice, as you were saying, of getting still and looking inward, so practicing meditation, it could be yoga or other mindful practices, then you don't have all this external world coming into you, and you have you fully go inward. Then you probably can pay attention and see. But you can also be super mindful on your mat, or and then you can decide anyway to go back to a crazy life. So I think seeing that your life is aligned, it's I think for some people it comes easily, and for other people it might take a lifetime, or some people who won't want to do that anyway. They might know they're not aligned, but it's a choice to stay in this non-alignment as well, and this is totally okay. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, we can be conscious and decide that, okay, no, I'm still going to eat meat, or I still don't want to change my lifestyle. I remember my brother, one of my older brothers shared with me once that he had this epiphany, I guess you could call it, or this awakening, when he realized that there were some things that he was committed to. This was inside of his career. He was really looking at what he wanted in his career. He said what he said he wanted in his career and what he was doing as it related to his career were completely different. And when he got clear on what his commitment was to the kind of lifestyle he wanted to have, the type of work that he wanted to do, kind of like you said, the rest were just details. Then I've never seen him work so hard. The tangible example I'll give you is he had this all the reasons in the world why he thought the educational system here in the US was just not sufficient. It wasn't effective. It was too administrative. It was too political, blah, blah, blah. And for years, but we all knew that he loved teaching. And he's been a great teacher. He wanted to teach, but he would do his own thing. He taught language, just, entrepreneurially. Well, several years ago when he got this epiphany, he realized, oh, it feels like I'm more committed to making this institution of education wrong than I am about actually teaching. And so, he was spending more of his time and energy on that. So he's like, oh, but actually, I really just want to make a difference in the life of young people. So when he got that so clear that he wasn't able to justify anymore not teaching, he got the certifications. He did all that, whatever he needed to do. And now he's a high school teacher. He teaches world geography. He coaches soccer. I think he's going to teach Spanish soon. I've never seen a man work so hard in the system that he was so anti, or that he was so confused and disappointed with. And I think, like you said, the discipline that it takes for us, I think the discipline is probably in being conscious, like just knowing ourselves, but then also actually listening, like doing something with it. Very good. So, okay, now you're in a new transition, right? You're in this whole new phase of life. Tell us what that's been like for you. What is the transition and what is it like for you?
Yeah. So I quit my corporate job maybe 6 months ago. I finished, and now I discovered that, well, I discovered before, but like my passion is teaching, as your brother, but teaching yoga, really this idea of transmission. Yeah. Transmitting and sharing the wonderful tools that are, yoga, like it can be breath work, it could be, of course, the physical part, but the meditation as well. Because I found also, not only in my job, because I don't want to criticize particularly my job, but generally speaking, the corporate world is getting like more and more intense every year. You get to do more, you are hyper connected, always reachable, pressure for delivering things. And I really saw people around me stressed out. A lot of my friends have also young kids and they're working sometimes full time. So it's a lot of things to handle. And I find a lot of people around me are almost burnt out. And if you start asking questions around you, actually a lot have gone through burnout, and you would not even suspect it, but it's actually kind of common. And so I decided that I would like to either work as in different role in the corporate world, but at least to like extract myself from it and really share the tools, but also so that people can thrive. Because I feel, we have only one life, or maybe you have other beliefs, but anyway, this life has to be lived, but has to be lived fully. And work is part of our life, but it's not our life, and we are not our job. We have much more. So yeah, I just started the teacher training for yoga the day I discovered finally what my purpose was in a way, and what my passion was, and it was really connected. And the more I dig into, the more I find amazing things to share. So yeah, continued that training. And then I discovered energy medicine that is very complementary. Then also aromatherapy that is very complementary, and many things really blend in. And also like the sound. I have like Tibetan bowl. I don't really know how to use them that well, but I really practice sometimes. Just like, again, vibration, it's energy. And it's, if you speak to someone and you say, oh yeah, you know, the Tibetan bowl, you can, or singing bowl, and they're just going to say, oh, whatever, you know, you're crazy. But if you do experience the sound, sometimes it can like open up your body, or, you know, you can, again, it doesn't go through the mind. It's just an immediate experience. And once you've been exposed to that, you can, yeah.
I think what would be interesting is to, you know, now that you've mentioned this idea of you're extracting yourself from this corporate world, but you also can see that there's such a need for what you're learning and what you're practicing. Let's just imagine that you had it all your way and you were walking into an office building with people who are on the verge of burnout. Where do you guide them? What do they start doing to begin to rekindle their energy?
For me, it starts with the breath.
Okay, so let's do some things. I think we should experience some of that, because if somebody's here watching during their break, I'd love for them to do some of this stuff. We might save someone's life today, Dominique.
So okay, so if you just want to get your energy a bit like uplifting, so you can go with, so you're going to breathe only through the nose, and you're going to go with 4 sniffs in. So you do, and then 1 out, which is going to be longer.
All through the nose, but so you don't exhale in between. You just inhale, yeah. inhale, exhale.
Yeah, exactly. You inhale, full capacity, lung capacity, and then exhale, 1 full exhale.
Okay, so I need to try that again.
Okay, I guide you, but just do, 4 parts in and 1 part out.
Okay.
I can count if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. Relax. Inhale 1.
And what does this do?
It's uplifting the energy. It's like energizing and uplifting. So if you can show you another thing, if you are like, for you, I think it's still morning, but you still might sometimes, late morning, you have a sugar crash or something before lunch, or in the afternoon as well. Sometimes you have some energy at first, and then, you feel drained. Yeah. So you can just put 1 finger in the belly button, the other finger on what we call the third eye, which is the point between the eyebrows, and you push, but you lift the energy up. So, and you do 1 inhale through the nose, you push both, exhale through the mouth, 2 more times, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, inhale through the nose, and exhale through the mouth. And you can relax and just see how you feel.
That hurt my belly button. I don't know if I was doing it right, but
nails?
No, I don't know. It was sensitive. I remember I don't know if you showed this to me or something that you shared with me. I think it was something with the head. Something we did with the head. What was that? Isn't it like putting your left hand behind?
This is when you have really like a stressful situation. Like you are very like anxious about it. It normally drains all the blood from your brain. And it goes to, because when we're in stress mode, it goes to the main organs. So you can just put like 1 hand in front, 1 hand to the back, but as if they were facing, both of them. And you can take deep inhale and exhale. But that's when you think about the stressful situation. So if you are under stress for a specific reason, you can think about it and you you breathe quietly, and normally it will bring calm. And this you can stay for a while if you need, like you can stay a few minutes.
Okay, so for anybody listening to this and you're under some stress, either because you're preparing for a report or a presentation, or maybe figuring out what's for dinner tonight, any of it, I can see somebody walking around the supermarket like this. Just cool. All right, so you're in the workplace. That breathing is something that doesn't necessarily require a lot of. You don't have to show anybody what you're doing. Are there other things that are also quite easy to do while one's sitting at a desk that you would recommend?
Just get enough hydration for sure, and when we sit too much as well. So I think if you can, every hour at least you should get up and go, around the office and then come back sitting. But they really say sitting is the new smoking. So really for health reasons, it's really bad. And I think, again, our energy is like, we're a bit like drained. So we're not so energized. So I think that's something I would recommend.
Okay, good. So stay hydrated, keep moving.
Yeah, and also if you need like a little energy boost, you can go to the bathroom. You can just fill the tap with some cold water, and you put your elbow in the cold water just for a few seconds, and it will energize you. You can try
elbows in cold water.
Cold water, yeah.
Interesting. So not washing your hands, you literally okay. I have to say that the challenge, the Wim Hof challenge, right? The breathing challenge. I haven't listened to the whole video, but this is a gentleman who is really well known for some of his extreme. Well, it's not extreme, but it's extreme for the comfort that we these days expect. He does some extreme breathing, and a lot of what he does requires the use of cold water. And so his challenge was to spend a minute in the cold water. I know you're doing this challenge, so can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
So it started yesterday, and because we are probably in time zone difference, we get the video rather late. So I started again day one today, so that I will always receive the video like in mid-morning, and I can apply early morning the next day. But the first day, it was just not the breathing yet. He will teach us his special. So his like nickname is Iceman. So he can really stay in ice for 2 hours, like just ice cubes all around him, and he does amazing things. Like he ran the marathon in the desert without drinking. So marathon is 42 kilometers and that kind of thing. And so, so the shower, it was, he said of course, the first day is not going to be too intense because they don't want you to be totally disgusted and never come back. So he said, just take your regular shower, but then at the end, take 1 minute. So you really calculate the minutes, you put your timer, 1 minute cold water. So I followed the advice, and it was interesting because, again, like I never liked cold water. So my mind is like, I don't like that, but I'm in a phase where I try everything. So I decided to go for it. And the first reaction was really this contraction, because it's true, like you stop breathing and then you have, okay, I have to breathe. That's the first thing. And it's amazing because after, I think, maybe less than 10 seconds, actually, I didn't feel the cold. I mean, I felt, of course, physically, I still felt the cold, but my analysis of this was not anymore, it's cold or I don't like it. It was just, I almost liked it, actually. Today was my second shower in the same state. So again, 1 minute. And I can't even now express what's cold or not cold. I can't even, it's hard to explain, but it's just, you are in it and your body, because I think actually the body thrives in cold. So past the shock, you already have sort of probably something happening in the body, in the chemistry. But for me, it was totally okay. But if I really just was following like my previous self, just like my mind, I would first say, this is crazy. I'm not going to do something I like. Why should I do that? Because we live in a country where we have hot water. We're going towards fall, so it's getting outside. But actually what I see, when I came out of the shower as well, I was not cold. I was in t-shirt and I was feeling like, so you really get this boost. So sometimes through discomfort, you get great things in life.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. So I have to admit, I did do it. I did it. I did it before I went to bed, and yeah. So I didn't have a timer or anything, so I just had to count 60 seconds. I feel like I honored the 60 seconds, but I couldn't catch my breath. It was like just the shock.
Did you breathe?
Yeah, well, I was breathing, but I was more like gasping, probably. Just the shock of the cold. But it was interesting because I don't know if I got to where you are, where you're like, oh, I didn't feel the cold anymore. I felt it, and I was just trying to breathe through it. But I remember afterwards laughing because I was like, it's water. You know? I remember turning off the water at the end, and I just laughed because I thought, it's water. No one died. There was maybe some discomfort. It was a minute. And it did, you said this about discomfort, but I feel like the part of being conscious and awareness for me in the moment was the lengths that we go to not be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. The lengths that we go to feel safe, the lengths that we go to not be challenged, the lengths that we go to not take risks. And I know it's this really small thing, and I thought about it. An inordinate amount of thought went into, would I put on cold water for a minute? It's just water. And then I went obviously through the experience, but then afterwards I remember just laughing at myself. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is silly. Why was I thinking so hard about this? And it was a minute and I'm fine. And now I go to sleep in a comfortable bed. So it's not like, I don't know, but I think that's kind of just to like wrap up some of the stuff that we talked about, of really being able to get clear and intentional about the life that we live, the things that we do, what we're listening to in our body, what we're made aware of. It seems to be really important. And I mean, for you, it's obviously generated so many fantastic life journeys, really, right? Is there anything else that you'd like to say as we're wrapping up?
No, that I'm just grateful to have all these opportunities for experiencing different things. And like meeting you, for instance, was one totally unexpected thing. And no, I'm just grateful for life, because life always offers a lot of things. It's just we have to be, to have the eyes open and be willing to experiment. So yeah.
And you did say that you're in a phase in your life where you're saying yes to a lot of things. And I think that's what it takes to come alive, right? For us to feel alive is maybe a 1 minute cold shower is what it will take to make you feel alive. But simply saying yes to something that you've not done before and experimenting does the trick as well. And who knows what comes out at the end? You might become a vegan. You might start learning Kundalini yoga. You might decide to change jobs. You might decide to have a family. I mean, who knows what saying yes leads to? And you said this life is an important one. Whichever belief you have about what happens after this life, regardless of it, we're all in it and we all have to get out of it at some point, right? There's an end to all of it. So thank you so much, Dominique, for sharing yourself with us and your breathing, your energy tricks. Hopefully they've made a difference. It's been great to have you on the show.
Thank you. That was a pleasure. And it's amazing also when you think of technology that nowadays, you are in your living room in Dallas. I'm in Geneva, and it's as if we were drinking tea together and being in the same room. So yeah, that's an amazing time we live in.
Well, next time we'll actually have to have a little tea so that we commemorate. Oh, very, very good. No, it's been a real pleasure to have you. So thank you all for tuning in. Those of you who are here live with us, as well as those that are listening to the recording. As usual, I appreciate your positive vibes coming our way. Share this with your family and friends. This might open up some really good discussion. Or even just spend some time thinking about some of the ideas that Dominique shared on our session today. next week, as we always have interesting conversations, on October 22nd, we'll have Maggie Abendschein. She'll be talking about some of the reasons why she went into the type of work that she's doing, which is around helping nonprofits thrive, and some of her own personal journey in getting to that. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. I hope you all can tune in next week for another episode of Time to Come Alive. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are. Bye, everyone.